because we want to make a connection. They're here for 3-4 hours. And that's where I think you create an exceptional experience as well, is you actually listen to the guests. You know, I always say to the staff, it's like, don't just go and say, this is oyster with green ants. First, ask them a question to engage with them. That's how you would have a conversation with a human. Have you ever had green ants?
Today on Dirty Linen, we are checking in with a chef that I know well from his time in Melbourne at Vue, where he was executive chef. But Justin James is now over in Adelaide at Restaurant Botanic in Botanic Gardens in Adelaide. Justin, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thanks, Dani. Thanks for having me.
Tell me where life finds you today. What's Restaurant Botanic all about?
I'm over in Adelaide right now in the Botanic Gardens. And Restaurant Botanic is kind of the updated version of the old Restaurant Botanic Gardens restaurant. And we did some exciting renovations back in during May and June and recently reopened. We've been open for about 12 weeks now.
Wow, what's open restaurant life like? I don't know about that here in Melbourne. Hopefully I will soon.
Yeah, I mean, pretty fortunate to come across this opportunity in Adelaide and make the move. And life is pretty, I want to say, quote unquote, normal over here. Things not too different, just a few QR check-ins here and there and some limitations to capacity. But other than that, it's it's like COVID what?
Love it. Yeah, hopefully we'll be there one day. What's the food like there? What's the concept?
Yeah, so back up here for a second. There used to be the idea of the restaurant. It's in this heritage building that's over 100 years old, has so much character to it. And before I joined the team, they were using the produce around the Botanic Gardens as well. And now the new kind of idea and the vision that I'm bringing to the restaurant with the renovations is it's an open kitchen. And before it was all about looking outside to the gardens, but I'm bringing the gardens inside. And it's not just by grabbing a leaf from the gardens and put it on a dish. We're really thinking outside the box, using a lot of techniques to change these ingredients in the Botanic Garden and tell a story on a plate through about 16, 17 dishes.
Wow. So, I mean, that sounds like a real journey. Give us an example of some of the produce that you're using in the dish that you turn it into.
Yeah, absolutely. It starts from the moment, like I say, it's like one of the best restaurant entrance for a restaurant. You walk through the Friends Gate and you're surrounded by these Moreton Bay fig trees. They're just massive. And like, the smell and the aroma and the sounds, it really gets all your senses going. And it's about a 5-6 minute walk to the restaurant. So I try to take everything I see every day when I walk in and put that in the experience. So it's not also about taste. And it just changes. There's like microclimates in the gardens as well. So there's some things that are just that should only grow in like Queensland that are growing down here as well. So it's really a special kind of ecosystem. And from the moment you walk in, we have like a tea that has all these flowers and herbs that you immerse yourself into. And the base of the tea is made with green ants. And it's very sour. We're coming into summer, so it's something that's just really refreshing as well, awakens the palate. And it's, made me think about how I walk into the gardens every day and check out what's good and what's not. It's very 5 senses, because you also grab in the cup as well. And it's just raw texture that, kind of reminds me of just kind of forage and getting your hands through some rocks and soil and whatnot. And going with the tea.
Sounds so good.
It's pretty good. I think it's all right. And we serve the tea with the tea, oyster from Coffin Bay. It has a big pile of green ants on it. It almost makes sense because your oysters are always served with some kind of like lemon or mint in that. And these green ants just have full of acidity, kaffir lime, and coriander. And then we use some of the horseradish that's just being grown in botanical gardens as well to season off that oyster. And basically every dish has some kind of, idea around the garden. And then another idea at the end of the meal almost is a dish made from the fallen branches of the bunya tree. Now, the bunya is a pine tree. It's one of the world's largest pine tree. It creates one of the world's largest pine cone and pine nuts. But it takes about 2 to 3 years for the pine cones to fruit. And I really want to champion the produce in the gardens. So I could just buy some bunions from Queensland, but I've been waiting for them patiently. But in the interim, I was like, what else? How else can we use this product? So I looked at the dead branches on the ground, and we actually make a dessert just with those fallen branches, which is pretty awesome.
What do you mean? Like some kind of wood pudding?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It's like a wood pudding. We take all the branches. We help the gardeners out, cleaning it up as well. And then we give them a good clean, and then we roast them till they almost catch on fire in the oven. And then we like to steep it in cream, and it's quite bitter. We just off balance that bitterness with some sugar, and then we kind of set the cream, and then we put a little bit of sugar on top and torch it. It's like an ice cream / creme brulee kind of had a baby. And then that's it. And then we serve it with a sauce made from those same roasted branches, a little bit of filtered water, infusion, salt, sugar, and native thyme.
That's so interesting. I mean, I'm assuming, with the team that was there before, I'm assuming some of them are still there now, and they've got this new exec chef that's come in that's just like, guys, we're just going to make dessert out of these sticks. And what's it been like kind of, getting the crew on board with the way that you're looking at the menu there?
Yeah, they've been super responsive to it. They're excited about it. I mean, the ideas that I have for the restaurant, I think they're out there, and they're creative. And yeah, it's not for everyone, like I say, the menu's not for everyone. And that's okay, because I always say if you are for everyone, then you're basically like a Kmart.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And the other thing about it's such a radical idea to dining, especially to Adelaide. I was a bit concerned how the general public will take it, but they've been nothing but the best guests in the world, really taking it on board, and people are coming back monthly. Which is awesome to see, because I think that's the biggest recognition you can have in a restaurant is repeat guests.
Well, especially a restaurant, which I guess is a bit of an investment and a bit of an experience. It's not somewhere where you just, be like, oh, what's for dinner tonight? Oh, let's go to Botanic.
Absolutely.
What's the deal with the foraging in the gardens? Because if I walk around my botanic gardens and start, picking some flowers for dinner, then I'm going to get in trouble. Like, what kind of arrangement do you have?
Yeah. You, as the general public, you're not allowed to pick anything from the botanical gardens. And with our agreement with them, most things are fair game. Now, a lot of it's common sense, I would say, but common sense is hard to find these days. So I'll put it like, it's really simple. If you're going to forage something, make sure you forage it the proper way, and you just don't go and hack it up. Like I always say to the chefs, give it a nice haircut, give it a 360 forge, so it looks like it hasn't been touched. We're only allowed to take about 40% of the fruits or the flowers off of a plant or a shrub. That way the other guests can experience and see the let's say for the blood orange tree that's in here, they can see that as well. And they also have this really cool program with it's called the Little Sprouts, where the kids can come in and see how like food is grown. I think that's really awesome. So we definitely we preserve it, we protect it. We're ambassadors of the botanical garden, and if there's something we're not allowed to forage, we won't even look at it.
Interesting. So, I mean, how are you finding living in Adelaide? Because obviously you've cooked around the world. I think people can listen to you and know that you weren't born in Australia. But what's Adelaide? I mean, how does Adelaide stack up as a food city and as a place to live and cook?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I just kind of ended up here randomly, I guess. I mean, long story short, I was going to move back to America. Had a gig in Los Angeles, but wanted to give Australia one more shot. And living around the world, Adelaide's is a sweet little spot to live to live in. I don't think it gets the credit it deserves. It's definitely a little slower. Life's a little slower here, but in a good way. Traffic's not bad. I think it's a little known. It's the Adelaide people don't want anyone to know how awesome it is. And the thing that really drew me over here was that there was great these wine regions that producing some great wine, also produces some great produce. And where there's great wine, there's always great food. And doing a little research, there's a lot awesome little restaurants and bars all throughout the CBD, but also these wine regions.
Yeah, it is something that I really appreciate about Adelaide as well is, you can be 10 minutes from the city, you're in the hills and it's really villagey and there's little farms and of course, all the wineries. It does feel like you've got easy access to some really, really beautiful produce.
Absolutely. And I looked across the spectrum of restaurants and saw that there was an opportunity and some potential to bring in a restaurant that was just maybe a little bit different, and hopefully I look at it sometimes whether I'm that restaurant or not, who knows, but sometimes all it takes is one restaurant or a group of restaurants to really change the dynamic of the hospitality scene in any city actually. So I hope to be part of that movement. Continue the movement that's already been here.
Yeah, that's really, really exciting. I mean, the big conversation for everybody in hospitality, probably around the world, definitely in Australia at the moment, apart from COVID, is staff. Like there's just no staff. Everyone's hiring. It's really hard to find people, to retain them. I mean, how is that for you in Adelaide? Is it the same conversations that people are having?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I tell you, like coming from working in America and then in Europe and then coming to Australia, there was already a shortage of staff, even when I came to Australia, 6.5 years ago, looking for staff in Melbourne. Everybody goes to Melbourne and Sydney as well, looking for, to work. And then those cities have a hard time finding staff. So then when you start to branch out to these smaller cities like Brisbane and Adelaide, it's even harder to find those staff because most of the staff that restaurants, and I can only speak for the restaurants I worked at, but most of the staff that I was hiring were international. They were coming in on a working holiday visa, or they were looking for some sponsorship. I mean, at the moment, you're not getting any of those international travelers coming in that you typically would hire either. So we've been looking for a restaurant manager since April, and what's it now, October, 6 months. It's definitely challenging.
Yeah. I mean, does it sort of dampen what you're able to do with the restaurant when you don't have people in those key positions?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You're as strong as your weakest link, and you have to find ways to, what were the traditional ways, and those aren't working anymore. So you have to think outside the box. How can we make this work so it doesn't seem like we're understaffed? And that's where it gets really tricky. But I also think it's really exciting at the same time. What at my restaurant, what we do now is, I mean, I know it's not anything new, but all the chefs do run food. The chefs actually help clear tables, and there's a handful of chefs, more of the senior chefs, that set tables as well. We're learning about the wine matches as well. And some people might say, oh, that's there's something nice about Somm there. But when you start actually what I'm trying to create is an environment for hospitality professionals, because you can't just have someone stand there and just, say I have 16 staff on to 40 guests, which is probably what I have on a Friday, Saturday night, which is a really good ratio. But then you're like, well, only 8 will cook and only 8 will serve. And my idea now is, well, all 16 will be able to help produce this experience. Some of us know how to make cocktails in case Jack in the bar gets slammed. We all know how to make pour over coffees. So no matter, there's all these little things in cross training now that I'm really trying to promote that helps out the big picture. And that's how I think that's how we're getting across, but it also produces a team that is well educated across many different areas where they can talk to the guests. And it creates it creates a different vibe. It's not like you're the maitre d' coming in and greeting you, and you don't have that captain in a section where you just only have those conversations with that person. You're actually meeting everybody in the restaurant, because that's what it takes to produce, I guess, in my setting, a 16-course tasting menu. And it's been a wild ride trying to train the team and try to execute that. It's a work in progress.
I think it's really fascinating. You're definitely making a positive out of a crisis, and that's Yeah, that's so commendable, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But do you think it sort of blunts the pointy end of, culinary creativity, or perhaps, that the real that incredible elevated experience that an amazing sommelier can bring to a wine experience? I mean, I can see that sort of meeting in the middle and the energy and the satisfaction that there would be in that. But do you think that there's things that you miss out on when you're doing that?
Oh, I think you 100% you'll miss out on some things. That being said, we do have a great somm that handles any of the wine, any of the wine discussions with our guests and with the parents, night and day. I don't think to the point. I don't think you can replace those, but there is an opportunity where you can get a little bit more. I guess from a business side, you get a little bit more bang for your buck, but you can also create an experience where it really is one team. We don't divide at all. There's not like this is the back house, this is the front of house. It's all hands on deck, because we have one goal, and our goal is to deliver exceptional experience. And that, if that means I have to pull out the vacuum at 10:30 to vacuum the dining room because some of the front of house staff, the dining room staff is doing something else on that day, then that's what will need to be done. But I still believe on the question you have that you still need those key points. We have a bar manager who looks after all our cocktails because he's a specialist in that. We have two somms, a head somm that looks after all the wine pairings and temperance as well. There's myself and my head chef Jake Davies in the kitchen and specialists on the food. So we do have our specialists, but at the same time, we're trying to create an environment where everybody can kind of help each other out as well. And it creates a really unique environment to work in as well. It's probably the most exciting team that I've been on because of the checks and balances and how we all help each other out. It's really awesome to see and to create, but also to be part of that.
I can also imagine that in a city the size of Adelaide that you perhaps become an employer of choice or a restaurant of choice or a restaurant that everyone's talking about, that perhaps that actually is a really conducive environment to create that sort of staff experience, because people aren't necessarily, looking ahead to the next restaurant that they're going to work at in the same city.
Yeah. I think in general, we have to ask ourselves, like I ask myself, what are my staff, in my restaurant right now, what are they going to do after this? I think that's an important question to ask if you want to be a leader in the industry, and a leader in hospitality. Like, what are they going to do next? Where are they going to go? And I sometimes lose sleep over that because it's a hard question to answer. Like, where will they go in Adelaide? Where are they going to go somewhere in Australia? Like if we are able to travel soon, will they go overseas? There's a bit of bigger questions here as well that I think need to be looked at and somehow addressed for the future of the industry as well.
So it's sort of like you want to help them along, to a really exciting career, but at the same time, aren't you just when it's so hard to find stuff, don't you just want to hang on to everybody?
Oh, absolutely. I think to accomplish something great, whether it's definitely in the hospitality business, whether it's a burger shop, a cafe, a bistro, or a fine dining restaurant, the most important, the secret is the team. And the longer you can keep the team together, the more likely you will achieve your goals. And I'd like to keep the team on as long as possible. But, that's not how it goes. And things happen in people's lives, whether they're ready to move on or they're ready for the next adventure, trying to, I say this, if you're like, I'm quite a seasonal chef, so I only use asparagus once a year. And let's say I've been cooking professionally, 20 years, and 10 years out of those 20 years, I've been making my own menus. But out of those 10 years, I've only used asparagus once. So that means in 10 years, I've only really understood and cooked and put asparagus on my menu 10 times. When I start thinking like that, that blows my mind, because I'm like, wow, I really don't know anything about asparagus. And that's how I look at my team and say, if you come and do 1 year, you've only seen 1 year of every season. You really need to spend 2 to 3 years minimum to really understand the philosophy of that chef, of that restaurant. You need to go through the seasons, and that's how you get the most out of it. But But I think that's how you get the most out of yourself as well, especially when you find a restaurant that has a great leader in it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective because I think a lot of chefs are always about the next restaurant, just soaking up the experience and then doing the next thing. But I think, there is certainly something to be said for going through those cycles and, going deeper, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if I was looking to hire like let's say a chef, right? And there's two chefs in front of me. One spent the last 3 to 4 years at a restaurant that maybe don't have, that's not a fine dining restaurant, but is really keen and is like, I want to take it to the next level. I want to learn, different ideas and thoughts about cooking and et cetera, et cetera. Or there was a chef that said, has worked in a couple Michelin star restaurants, a couple head restaurants, but he's only done, 9 months here, 1 month, 1 year here, 9 months. I'd probably go with the human that's been at the place for 3 to 4 years. That shows consistency and dedication. Because I know, to me, that's building a team. That's how I know if they stay with me for 2, 3, 4 years, that is, you're going to be a key to hitting our goals.
Justin, let's talk a bit about your journey through food, but let's start right at the beginning. Like, tell me about you and food as a kid. Where was food in your life, and where actually were you?
So I was in Michigan, in the United States, in the Metro Detroit area. Is where I grew up, but Metro Detroit doesn't mean like we're in the gang hustling of Detroit. Just a nice little suburban town. And my mom was a pretty good cook. We always had family meal dinner, cooked family meals, and that just ranged from a variety of things like fish grilled over the barbie, or some burgers, some steaks, sometimes like some vegetarian dishes as well. She just loved food. So I think that really got me into it. And then I remember I was in grade 5 or 6, and she said I had to start making my own lunches. So like your brown paper bag lunch. So that's where I think I really was first introduced to actually cooking for myself. And kind of this is the variety, she's like, here's the bread, here's the turkey, here's some cheese, here's, some condiments, just do whatever you please. So I usually just put double stuffed Oreos in there, but,
Yes, you did.
Yeah. But that was probably the beginning. And then in grade 7, I said I wanted to be a chef. And then I was cooking Thanksgiving, which, I think everybody knows what Thanksgiving is, but it really is
we know what Thanksgiving is.
Yeah, it's a whole turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, like green bean casserole. And I made all that. And then for Christmas, I'd make the Christmas dinner. And you can get your license in America at 16. So it kind of goes side to side when you get your first job, so you can afford gas to put in your car. And my first job was in a restaurant, and when I was 16, and I've worked in restaurants ever since, with the occasional odd job in landscaping here and there. And but there's not exceptional restaurants in Michigan, I'm not going to lie. And America has there's a lot of chain, fast food restaurants that kind of take over a lot of the options. So that's where I started, was probably just like in bars and bistros. But there's something that I think chefs, when they come out of culinary school and they go, say into a fine dining restaurant, that's only one, style of cooking. And like we only do 40 covers here in Restaurant Botanic. But in some of the restaurants I worked at, we did 400. You do 1,000 in a day. And that's where I started to learn. And you learn how to work extremely fast. And that's where you learn how to make, like, how you cook rice and pasta, steaks on the grill, or, like wherever you're working. And when you're pumping those numbers out, there's something that you start to learn, like how to organize yourself and really, really go for it. And then where I started to really, long story short, my dad told me to get a real job. So when I went to college, university, actually, to be a civil engineer. But during that time, I was a sous chef in a restaurant, working 50 hours a week, plus doing my full-time schooling. After I graduated, I said I wanted to be a chef, and he said, "That's on you now." And he felt like he did, he set me up to be an engineer. And so I went to culinary school in Vermont, which is the 4th smallest state in America. And it was all about what they do in Vermont. It's all about farm to table. it wasn't like a, you know, it wasn't like just a trend. It was like, this is what we believe in. Every house has like a farm. You grow your own produce, and then you harvest it, and then you cook it. And that's what that school was really about. And it was very small. Like the chef instructor, it was one chef instructor to about 6 to 8 students for basically every class. And I ended up then, I worked for a couple master chefs from France, and traditionally I've been trained in classic French cuisine. And then then I was starting to introduce myself into fine dining. And I remember I bought the 11 Madison Park cookbook. And I said that I'd never seen a cookbook like that, because I wasn't really introduced to those kind of Michelin star restaurants. I said, that's where I want to work. And I did a trial there, and then I went and did a trial at Blue Hill at Stone Barn, and ended up working at Blue Hill at Stone Barn. And then 11 Madison Park said, oh, we would like to give you a position. And that's really where I really wanted to work. So I took the job there and started all the way in the bottom as like an apprentice commis, where you didn't even really touch food. You put away all the toilet paper and paper towels. And I said, I'm gonna be the best damn stock boy. Essentially, that's what you are. What the position was, and I'm just gonna smash it out as hard as I can. And I organized it, made sure everything was just perfect, and then you just little tedious jobs. But it only lasted for about maybe 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, this is maybe 9 years ago now when I first started there. But yeah, very quickly I made it as a chef there, and spent nearly 3.5, almost 4 years at that restaurant.
Right. And from there, was it from there that you came to Australia?
Yeah. So, and that goes back to kind of what I was saying about, you know, staying at a restaurant for a long time. And I really wanted to progress there. I loved working there, not just as a restaurant, but it is a world-class restaurant, but it's a world-class, you know, business. Every area of it is just 3 Michelin stars. The way they talk to the team, the way they throw parties for the team, the way they give you opportunities, like just everything about it. I just remember, like, prior to that, you know, you just kind of getting like these, you know, like owners, like little small business restaurants, and then you come to that, it was like, wow, there's way more to this. It was a real eye opener for me.
Just like a real training ground.
Yeah, it really was. Like
a university of restaurants.
It was a university, yeah. And like, you go to university, you know, what's that, 3-4 years to get a degree. And that's where, I mean, it taught me all that other stuff that build up of like cooking on the line and all these things and how to organize myself. Like, I was not the cleanest chef when I started there, by no means. But at the end I was, and I was super organized. And it taught me how to work like that, how to think everything is 3 stars. Like the way you put away your produce, the way you label it, the way you cut labels. I mean, I could go on. The way you fold your tea towel, the way you iron your apron. It was everything, you know, everything. There was a way to do everything. And I absolutely loved that. And, but it also was so much more. Like, it was going through the seasons. The menu did change every season, you know, like we'll talk about like 4 seasons of the year. And it was all new. And after a while, I started actually getting an idea. Okay, this is what Daniel's going to put. I think he's going to put parsnip on. He loves using parsnips. How is he going to do it? And every year was different. But after that 3 or 4 years of seeing it, you know, okay, now I understand it. I started to get an idea of it. But it really was the way they season their food, and the way they just really pushed the salt and the acidity, but the richness or texture, whatever you want to pick, you know, the 5 tastes. But I also say there's way more to season a dish than the 5 tastes. They just push it to the limit, and I really I'm never forgotten that. And that's how I season my food to the day. But yeah, it comes to a point where I wanted to continue to grow in that company. But you know, at some of these restaurants, especially in New York, you know, to move up in a it's like nowadays chefs are like, oh, I've done this section for 6 months. I'm like, and your point? Like, you know, you have to wait in New York. You have to wait for somebody to like either die or to move out of the city to get promoted. And I thought I waited enough, and I said, okay, I'm not getting any younger here. Let's do some traveling. And I said, what's the farthest place for America? And that's got to be Australia. And just spun the map. And I worked with Stephen there, and he's a chef in Melbourne at Omni, the executive chef. We also spent some time at Vue de Monde. I said, hey mate, can I crash on your couch for a few weeks? I'm gonna come to Melbourne. I'm gonna try to get a job at Attica. And I had a working holiday visa, and he said, oh, you can crash on my couch, but I'm working at Vue de Monde. Why don't you just come work there for the first 6 months and then work at Attica for the next 6 months? I said, all right, that sounds good. And that's how I got introduced to Vue de Monde and started working there.
But you never left there and went to Attica, did you?
No, I didn't, because long story short, I remember I don't think he works there anymore, but there was a guy named James Schnell that was like, oh, you look like someone that we would hire, et cetera. So it was basically like locked in for Attica. But Vue de Monde, basically what happened was then 3 months, so like, would you like to be, I think I started in May, and in 3 months, so like, would you like to be sous chef? And I said, yeah, I'd like to be sous chef. And then that January, they're like, would you like to be the head chef? And I was like, sure. And then a few months later, it was like, would you like to be the executive chef? And I was like, yeah, that sounds all right. Melbourne's awesome. I can see myself here for a bit. Yeah, so it was a very quick progression, I would say, that was not expected. It was not part of the plan.
That escalated. And they sponsored you, did they?
Yeah, they sponsored me, and I always said, like, I went. That took me from, like, at that point, I've only really had a few senior roles, some not great restaurants, and a little bit of, just eye openings here and there. But yeah, that was probably, my first real head chef gig. It definitely was my first head chef gig. Let's not beat around the bush. I was like, whoa. And it's a lot. I mean, that restaurant is a beast.
There's a lot of aspects to it. But let's just go back to 11 Madison Park. What do you reckon about the whole vegetarian thing, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, if there was a restaurant that I was going to do it, I would definitely say it would be 11 Madison. I remember seeing this quote they always had, and I love it, is to stay the same, you must change. And, they're just constantly evolving. I was at a point, and this ties back into that question, was where I went actually vegan for about a year and a half. And it changed my whole outlook of cooking. And I get the point of what Daniel's trying to do there. I totally embrace it, because I don't think meat products moving forward, it's like he says, they're not against meat, they're just pro planet. And I'm on the same page of that. I think people should eat less meat and less seafood, not also for health reasons, but two, for the planet. And this will always go back and forth, like the people that raise the cattle and stuff saying it's good for the planet. But I think I think people just in general, this disconnect where you can go into Coles or Woolies and you just grab a pack of chicken breasts, and it's like a 600-gram pack and it's $9. And they actually don't think that that's part of it. Like there was an animal to that. I could see it in the restaurant with the guests. So I try to be a bit provocative. Is if I'm going to serve you meat, I want to make sure that came from a living animal. And yeah, I'm totally for it. I can just keep going on about that. To be honest, I can just ramble on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's probably no real argument against eating less meat. As a species, like we should definitely eat meat more thoughtfully. I think, there's definitely ways to eat meat ethically, but I agree that for, in a lot of scenarios, meat is eaten very thoughtlessly and without that understanding of, the life that was taken and the whole animal that, that chicken breast was attached to or whatever it is. What do you do to try to recreate that connection for people in a dining setting?
Well, I think, everybody should be willing to pay more money for meat and seafood, especially seafood. I think it's just way too cheap out there. And then the way to reconnect it for my diners is to bring in a little, like, here's the heart. We serve some duck. It's the only meat dish. I only serve one meat dish here. Most of it is other than the rest of the menu is vegetables and and seafood, and all the produce is know where it comes from. Instead of buying your meat at Coles, go to a butcher. The butcher will probably know where the beef's coming from, or chicken. They can give you a good story, but you're more likely to get the offal as well. So I like to show, the some of the ducks that I get had the head on. Well, we might bring the head out, just to show you. We might serve you the duck heart dressed in a little duck heart garum. We might show you, the liver. I think those little things, and they don't need to be big portions. Most of them are like 1 or 2 bites, little snacks. Like, here, try this, try that, try this. We're trying to utilize, not just the prime cuts, but these second cuts that, if you know what you're doing, are as delicious or even more delicious than a duck breast or a tenderloin on a piece of beef. And I think that's how you connect. That's how I look at it and connect it back.
When you make those connections, do you sort of see people? I mean, do they recoil? Do they embrace it? Can you see people's minds being changed? Like, do you feel like you are doing, some important work there?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can see it. Like, it's even like, it's even like with insects and stuff like that. I mean, you can see it like, oh, green ants or duck heart. You can really see it. The other day I did duck tongues. You could just, sometimes the guests are all about it, whether they're experienced diners, some guests, whether they just have such a closed mind, or they're just not willing to, like, I'm not going to eat a bug, or I'm not going to eat a heart. Others are coming into the restaurant, to try something new. And it's very clear, like, people's body language tells it all, I would say. And when you're in hospitality, you're in the business of actually reading people. You connect with people. We do, on a Friday, we do lunch and dinner. That's 80 guests. Well, in one day, I've at least talked to 80 humans, and everyone's different. It's a whole nother conversation. But going back, you can really see it. It really does push the boundaries, and I think that's important for a restaurant, some restaurants, to do that.
Well, I guess, and going back to what you were saying before about this sort of cross-pollination of skills and, chefs on the dining floor, I suppose that does help that along as well, when you do make sure that people who are cooking for people are actually also engaging with those people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. I say there's always a book, Malcolm Gladwell. It's called Blink, like blink of the eye. Make a judgment, go with your gut. That's usually the first one. So you really have to, in a blink of an eye, almost, kind of judge that the table. Like, you have to really connect with them, because we want to make a connection. They're here for 3-4 hours. And that's where I think you create an exceptional experience as well, is you actually listen to the guests. I always say to the staff, it's like, don't just go and say, this is oyster with green ants. First, ask them a question to engage with them. That's how you would have a conversation with a human. Have you ever had green ants? And instantly, I could do 2 tables side by side, and one, I could just tell them about the green ants, or I could just ask them if they ever had it. And it's always 2 different conversations. One's actually interested, because you actually ask them a question. We're not a restaurant. We don't turn tables. We don't want you to leave. We're happy to look after you for as long as you like to be here. Take a little mini holiday. And that's the key to that, to make them feel comfortable, is to listen, ask them questions, and try to give them the best experience tailored to their wants and needs, with what we're capable of doing and our own values of the restaurant.
That sounds really appealing, I have to say. And when you said take a little holiday, I kind of swooned. It's like the idea of taking a little holiday. I know it's going to happen soon, but it hasn't happened for a while. Justin, it's been so incredible to talk to you. Just as we wrap it up, is there anything we haven't touched on that you really want to say?
I mean, I think we talked a bit about everything there. I hope that, from my Melbourne peeps, that I hope you guys come out of that lockdown and really embrace the hospitality industry and really support them and actually enjoy dining out, because it's, in general, dining out to me is part of general, our everyday life. It really is mini holidays during the week where you can forget about maybe work or an argument with your partner or some financial, whatever it may be. Like, just chill out, really enjoy it, and be respectful to the staff that work in hospitality as well. That's something that's been kicking me up a little bit. But yeah, a lot of us want to actually work in restaurants. We could have been, a lot of us had an opportunity to do whatever we wanted in life. We wanted to really create something special for you.
Yeah. Well, I know that I'm personally very grateful to anyone who's made that life choice and continues to make it and stick with it. There are so many people that have left the industry. Like, yes, there's fewer internationals here at the moment, and we all know why. But there are also people who are here, but they've left the industry. I mean, what would you say to someone who's sort of sitting on that fence and just wondering if hospitality is still for them?
Yeah. That's an excellent question. That's to each their own. Because I'd be honest, I've sat there before and asked myself that, especially after Vue. It's like, is fine dining, is doing this, is it all worth it if it's not? And I would give yourself, really think about it, because you did choose this, this industry or this as a career, and ask yourself why you did. Maybe try to reignite that flame. Go have, just reach out to other people in the industry and chat to them, or maybe remove yourself from the industry for a bit and just look at different outlets, what you can do, or maybe think about what you can do in this industry, because there's a lot more to food or beverage or service than just a restaurant. There's a lot of different opportunities out there, and maybe go down there for a little bit and see. Because for me, I did leave fine dining for a little bit. And there was part of me that I was like, I have to create something that's just different. I have to, I have to create this experience. It's just part of me. It won't leave. And since I've accepted it, I've enjoyed my life a lot more. So maybe those kind of words can help someone out.
Yeah. I think there's a lot in what you've just said, Justin, and I think, it will resonate with a lot of people. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your approach and your wisdom today. It's been so great to catch up with you, and I cannot wait to head over to Adelaide and to take that 6-minute walk from the gates to the restaurant, and then just, let you take me on a culinary journey. I'm really excited.
I'll look forward to the day, Dani, and thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta @dirtylinen podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.